There's an invisible war happening right now, and most of us walk straight through the battlefield without ever noticing it. There are no explosions, no soldiers yelling orders, no maps with red arrows showing troop movements. Instead, the front line is the grocery aisle where you grab your weekly snacks. It's the digital battlefield inside your phone, the endless scroll of posts, ads, and recommended for you content. It's the prescription your doctor writes in under 3 minutes because the software suggested it. And the people shaping this war, they're not soldiers. They don't wear helmets or camouflage. They wear tailored suits, own patents instead of weapons, and run corporations bigger than some countries. They don't need to force anything on us. They simply program the environment around us until their choices feel like our choices. Think about it. The cereal you pick, the political outrage you stumble into at 11 p.m., the medication your friend swears everyone needs. None of that is random. It's engineered, designed, optimized, not for your well-being, but for their bottom line. But here's the part they don't want you to realize. Once you see the system, you can't unsee it. Once you understand the game, you stop being a pawn. So today, we're doing something simple but dangerous. We're pulling the curtain back. We're decoding the systems that shape what we eat, what we think, what we fear, and even what we believe is normal. Welcome to the unseen battlefield. Let's step inside. The food revolution that wasn't. If the invisible war really does exist, then the first battlefield most of us walked into was the kitchen. And honestly, it's wild how easily we got played. Think back to the 90s. If you were alive then, you remember the vibe. Every grocery aisle screamed low fat, like it was the answer to every problem humanity ever had. Cookies, low fat. Yogurt, low fat. Muffins the size of a football, also low fat, and somehow healthy. It felt like we were living through a food revolution, like the science was settled, and we were finally getting smarter about what we ate. Except, that entire revolution was built on what might be one of the biggest public health lies ever sold. A big fat lie, literally. While everyone was terrified of eating a tablespoon of butter, Big Food was quietly pumping almost everything with high fructose corn syrup. That fat-free blueberry yogurt you saw in commercials, it had more sugar than a can of Coke. The healthy granola bars every parent packed into their kids' lunch. Same story. But no one questioned it, because the people funding the studies about fat just so happened to be the same corporations selling the sugary replacements. And that's where the sugar conspiracy begins. We weren't just encouraged to avoid fat. We were guided and marketed away from real food and pushed toward engineered, shelf-stable sugar bombs. The result? The real pandemic wasn't something that arrived in 2020. It was already happening quietly for decades. Obesity skyrocketed. Diabetes rates exploded. People didn't become lazy. They became chemically overwhelmed. Their entire environment was rigged against them. Here's the thing. The food industry doesn't like you talking about. They knew exactly what they were doing. This wasn't oops, we didn't realize sugar was bad. It was a deliberate strategy. When you remove fat from food, it tastes like cardboard. So they added sugar. But sugar is addictive. Not in the haha, I love candy bars way. More like the biological, measurable, dopamine-spiking addiction that keeps you coming back. And every time you came back, they made more money. Fast forward to today, and people are pushing back. Keto, carnivore, paleo. whatever you call it. It's just a generation looking at the old food pyramid and saying, yeah, not falling for that again. And of course, big food absolutely hates this trend. Not because it's unhealthy, but because it's unprofitable. You can't patent steak. You can't trademark eat real food. You can't build a billion-dollar brand around eggs, salmon, or avocados. So what happens? The moment keto started going mainstream, the industry began releasing keto-friendly processed snacks. Keto bars, keto cookies, keto cereal, stuff with ingredient lists so long you need a chemistry degree to decode them. The same companies that engineered the low-fat era are now trying to cash in on the reversal of their own disaster. It's almost funny if it weren't so destructive. And when carnivore exploded on TikTok and YouTube, suddenly you had articles everywhere calling it dangerous, extreme, misleading, pseudoscience. Maybe some of those critiques are valid, but it's interesting how the loudest opponents always seem to be funded by the same organizations that profit from the current system. The backlash isn't about health, it's about market share. Think about how strange it is that eating unprocessed food is now considered a diet. Since when is eating meat, eggs, fruit, and vegetables controversial? Since it threatened an entire industry built on ultra-processed profit. This is why the food revolution we were promised never happened. We didn't get healthier. We got marketed to. We didn't get better science. We got sponsored science. And the most insane part? The nutritional guidelines that still shape school lunches, hospital meals, and public health recommendations were heavily influenced by the same players who funded the low-fat era. We're living with the consequences of a system that was never designed for human health in the first place. So if you've ever wondered why eating normally makes you feel tired, bloated, unfocused, or constantly hungry, the answer is simple. The system wasn't built for your well-being. It was built for their revenue. And this brings us to a bigger question, the one almost no one asks. Who actually writes our nutritional rules? Who benefits when the public believes fat is the villain? Who profits when sugar hides behind 56 different names on ingredient labels? Once you start noticing the pattern, you can't unsee it. Just like the invisible war in Part 1, the food battlefield isn't a dramatic movie scene. It's your fridge, your pantry, and the brightly colored packages at your grocery store that were engineered to bypass your brain's defenses. And once they control your food, the next battlefield is obvious, your health. And that's exactly where we're heading next. Big Pharma, the sickness industry. If the food system was the first battlefield, then the healthcare system is where the war gets personal. Because once your diet has worn you down, once the inflammation, the fatigue, the weight gain, the brain fog start piling up, there's a very specific industry waiting right around the corner. And they're not offering solutions. They're offering subscriptions. Here's the uncomfortable truth. In America, we don't have a healthcare system. We have a sick care system. A machine built to manage symptoms, not solve problems. And if you start looking closely, you'll see the pattern everywhere. The goal isn't to make you healthy. The goal is to turn you into one of what the industry quietly calls perpetual patients. People who stay sick just enough to require constant treatment, but not enough to actually get off the treadmill. Look at how many normal parts of human life have been turned into medical conditions. Feeling tired? Disorder. Trouble focusing? Disorder. Occasional mood swings? Disorder. You're not allowed to be a human being with ups and downs anymore. You're a potential customer for another pill. And those pills, half the time the side effects sound like a horror movie. Insomnia, nausea, even addiction. And if that happens, don't worry. They've got another pill for that too. And this isn't conspiracy thinking. It's the business model. Chronic illness is far more profitable than curing anything. A cured patient stops paying. A managed patient? That's lifetime revenue. That's why we have entire generations on pharmaceuticals for life, not months. That's why your doctor's visit feels less like a conversation and more like a software-guided checklist. But something interesting is happening. And it's happening fast. People are fed up. They're starting to ask questions. And for the first time in decades, the industry doesn't have total control. One of the biggest shifts is the rise of telehealth. 5 years ago, it was a niche thing. Now guys in their 20s and 30s use telehealth for everything. Testosterone checks, mental health consults, sleep support, gut health coaching. And suddenly, the middlemen aren't as powerful anymore. Instead of waiting months for an appointment, people can talk to a specialist from their couch in 10 minutes. Instead of relying on whatever lab the hospital wants, they can order their own tests online. And that leads to the next revolution: at-home testing. Companies now send full diagnostic kits straight to your door. Blood work, gut microbiome analysis, food sensitivity panels, hormone tracking, you name it, and you can test it without ever stepping foot in a clinic. For the first time, regular people can access data that used to require multiple appointments and thousands of dollars in gate-kept fees. This shift is creating something Big Pharma absolutely hates: health freedom. Because when you can see your own biomarkers, when you can track your sleep with a ring or watch, when you can test your inflammation levels every month, when you can compare your numbers before and after lifestyle changes, you no longer need to rely solely on the system to tell you what's happening inside your own body. It's empowering. And also very bad for profits. That's why you're suddenly seeing hit pieces about biohacking influencers, dangerous self-diagnosis, and misinformation around alternative health. Sure, some of the criticism is fair. There's always bad advice online. But the knee-jerk hostility isn't about safety. It's about losing control. For decades, the system kept people uninformed and dependent. Now the internet is giving millions the tools to fix their own problems before they become billable conditions. And let's be clear, this isn't anti-doctor. There are incredible doctors out there who genuinely care. Many of them are just trapped in a system built around billing codes instead of outcomes. A typical doctor has maybe 7 minutes per patient. That's not healthcare, it's triage. Which is why people are gravitating toward personalized medicine, treatments based on your genetics, your lifestyle, your environment, your actual data. Not population averages, not outdated guidelines. Real precision, real solutions. And when people combine personalized medicine with biohacking, cold exposure, optimized nutrition, resistance training, sleep protocols, metabolic tracking, they start seeing results Big Pharma can't compete with. Because you can't bottle daily discipline. You can't sell a patented version of Fix Your Habits. What this all leads to is a future where people own their health the same way they own their smartphones. Not controlled by corporations, not locked behind insurance red tape, not dependent on a system that profits from their sickness. Health shouldn't be something you outsource. It should be something you manage, measure, and master yourself. And once you understand that, you start noticing how the digital world is shaping your choices too. What you see, what you buy, and even how you think. Which leads us into the next battlefield. The one most people never expect. The one inside your own phone. The digital plantation. If Big Pharma turned our bodies into long-term revenue streams, Big Tech has done something even more invasive. They've turned our minds into raw material. And most of us didn't even notice it happening, because the whole thing was disguised as convenience, entertainment, and personalization. But peel off the friendly UI, the cute icons, the notifications that feel like little dopamine presents, and you'll see the outlines of something far more unsettling. We're living in a new kind of plantation. Not the kind with fields and fences. The fields are digital now, and we're the ones farming them. Except we're not harvesting crops. We're harvesting data for corporations that are richer than some nations. This is digital serfdom. And the craziest part? We signed up willingly. Think farmers relying on Monsanto seeds was bad. Look in the mirror. We're the new digital peasants, working land we don't own. Every photo you upload, every DM you send, every late-night search, every angry comment, it all gets collected, analyzed, and repackaged into a psychological profile more detailed than anything your closest friend could describe. Then it gets sold. Over and over. Infinite inventory, zero cost. People say, if the product is free, you're the product. But that's outdated. Today, your mind is the product. Your attention, your impulses, your fears, your insecurities. Every part of your inner world is monetized in the attention economy. Your emotions power their algorithms. Your scrolling habits train their AI. The more predictable you are, the easier you are to sell. This is why platforms don't just show you content. They shape you. They tune your worldview. They sculpt your tastes, your politics, your self-image. The algorithm isn't just responding to you. It's training you. Every scroll makes their AI smarter while making you more predictable. Every like teaches it what to hook you with next. Every pause of your thumb tells it what triggers your brain. You think you're choosing what to watch. Most of the time, you're picking from a tiny set of options the algorithm picked to keep you hooked. Whatever keeps you there the longest. Because attention is the new oil. Data is the new gold. And your mind is the mining site. Now add AI into the mix, and things get even more intense. We're not just dealing with algorithms anymore. We're dealing with systems that learn at superhuman speed. Tools that don't sleep, don't forget, don't get tired. We've hit the point where AI knows you better than you know yourself. Not spiritually, but behaviorally, predictively, statistically. And here's the twist no one is ready for. The question isn't whether AI will take over. It's whether we'll remain free while living alongside it. Look at the AI arms race happening right now. Google, OpenAI, Microsoft, Meta, all accelerating like their lives depend on it. Because they do. Whoever controls the smartest AI will control the next era of power. Not political power. Cognitive power. Economic power. Influence power. And what does that mean for the average guy in his 20s or 30s? It means the future of work is shifting faster than any generation before us. Knowledge jobs, coding, writing, research, analysis are being automated. Not replaced overnight, but transformed into something where humans assist AI, not the other way around. And the people who adapt will thrive, while the people who don't get pushed further into digital dependency. This is where the plantation metaphor becomes real. In the old days, Power came from controlling land. Now it comes from controlling attention, data, and intelligence. That's why tech giants want to be the interface between you and everything. Your friends, your information, your entertainment, your work, your identity. Look at your daily life. Your phone decides which notifications actually reach you. TikTok decides what mood you're in for the next hour. YouTube decides what you discover next. Instagram decides whether your content deserves visibility. Google decides what you believe is credible information. These aren't neutral tools. They're psychological environments designed for manipulation at scale. And here's the eerie part. The system doesn't need to control what you think. It only needs to control what you think about. By keeping you distracted, overstimulated, outraged, numbed, and constantly consuming, it keeps you in a state where you're easier to manage and easier to sell. That's digital serfdom. Not physical chains, mental ones. But here's the good news. Once you understand the game, you can start playing it on your own terms. You can take control of your attention. You can treat your data like property instead of confetti. You can use AI as a tool instead of letting it use you. Because the real threat isn't AI becoming too smart. It's humans becoming too passive. This is the turning point, where mental autonomy becomes currency, digital literacy becomes self-defense, and choosing what you consume becomes rebellion. And if this digital battlefield feels overwhelming, remember, this isn't the final war. There's one more front, one more system built on fear, guilt, and profit, and it's the one that claims it's trying to save the world. Climate capitalism. If the digital plantation showed us how tech companies can shape your mind, then climate capitalism shows us how corporations can shape your morality. And just like the food system and the sick care system, this one also hides behind a shiny, polished narrative. Because nothing sells better in 2025 than saving the planet. Let's get one thing straight from the jump. Climate change is real. The weather's weirder, the fires are bigger, the storms hit harder, and everyone with functioning eyesight can see something's off. But right behind that uncomfortable truth is another one. A massive billion-dollar green industrial complex has grown around it, an ecosystem of corporations, investors, and politicians who figured out that fear is profitable if you package it correctly. These are the climate profiteers. The same companies telling you to skip a plastic straw are quietly investing billions into new oil extraction, offshore drilling, and petrochemical infrastructure. They preach eco-virtue, but their balance sheets tell another story. They shame you for using a gas stove while flying private jets to sustainability summits. Meanwhile, they emit more CO2 in a day than you will in a lifetime. And then there's carbon credits, the modern-day indulgences. In medieval times, you could pay the church to erase your sins. Today, corporations pay to offset pollution while continuing business as usual. You burn the planet, you buy a certificate, everyone pretends something changed. It's not a solution. It's a loophole wrapped in moral language. But here's the twist they don't want regular people to notice. The most effective environmental solutions aren't coming from massive corporations or global conferences. They're coming from local movements, communities building resilience, neighborhoods sharing resources, and everyday people taking control of their own energy. Take the rise of decentralized solar. Not the giant corporate solar farms in the desert. Those are still controlled by the same utilities. I'm talking about households and small communities installing rooftop panels, home batteries, microgrids, and power-sharing agreements. Suddenly, the grid doesn't own you. You own your own power. And guess who hates that? The same energy giants pretending to be green, because decentralized energy threatens their entire business model. The same pattern is happening in carbon capture. While mega corporations pump out flashy ads about net zero by 2040, the real innovations are coming from scrappy startups actually building machines that remove CO2 from the atmosphere. No greenwashing, no fancy slogans, just engineering. Companies like Charm Industrial, Heirloom, Climeworks, they're small, imperfect, and still developing, but they're solving real problems instead of selling guilt relief. And here's the big irony. The corporate world wants you to believe that your individual choices, your laundry detergent, your coffee cup, your takeout container, will decide the fate of the planet. But the math doesn't support that. A handful of massive companies produce the overwhelming majority of global emissions. Literally, a few dozen. But instead of reforming their operations, they outsource the responsibility to you. It's the perfect PR trick. Make you the villain so they can play the hero. And the craziest part? Most people feel overwhelmed because they think environmental change requires huge, global coordination. But history shows that's not true. Real, lasting transformation usually starts small. Local infrastructure, community networks, people who decide to build instead of wait. Imagine neighborhoods with their own microgrids, cities where rooftops generate more electricity than power plants, communities growing part of their own food supply, homes designed to store and reuse water, not because it looks good on Instagram, but because it works, because it builds strength, because it reduces dependency. That's the future they don't market to you. Because it doesn't make them money. Because it empowers you instead of them. So when corporations flash green logos and talk about virtue, ask yourself, is this real sustainability or just corporate virtue dressed up as heroism? Real change won't come from billion-dollar press releases. It'll come from people reclaiming their power, literally and metaphorically. And once you start seeing through the marketing fog, you begin to understand the final piece of this puzzle. If every system around you, from food to healthcare to tech to climate, is designed to keep you dependent, then breaking free isn't just possible. It's necessary. And that brings us to the final chapter: how to get out of the matrix completely. Breaking the matrix. After walking through all these battlefields, your food, your health, your attention, even the planet, you might feel a little overwhelmed. And honestly, that's normal. These systems were built to feel too big to challenge, too complicated to understand, and too essential to escape. But here's the twist no one expects. You don't need to topple corporations or rewrite global policy to take back control. You just need to reclaim yourself. Because the real battlefield isn't out there. It's your habits, your attention, your choices. That's where the revolution happens. Quiet, consistent, underestimated, but powerful as hell. The biggest lie sold to young adults today is that we're powerless. That everything is decided by governments, CEOs, and algorithms beyond our reach. But look closer. Every system we talked about depends on one thing: your participation. Your money, your clicks, your time, your compliance. That means you hold more power than you realize, and every day you have the tools to use it. Not through protests or petitions, but through the simplest form of rebellion: your personal choices. This is the part where we shift from awareness to action. From "they control everything" to "I control myself." From consumer to sovereign individual. So how do we break the matrix? Here's where it starts. 1. Master your attention. The fuel of every system. If the attention economy is the new oil, then your focus is your freedom. Nothing drains your potential faster than being mentally hijacked by notifications, endless feeds, and algorithmic rabbit holes. So here are 3 steps to take back your attention. Simple, realistic, and doable for anyone. Step 1. Build digital minimalism into your phone. Remove apps that control your mood more than you control them. Keep the essentials. Ditch the dopamine traps. TikTok, Instagram Reels, endless scrolling platforms. They're not bad, but they're engineered to bypass your brain's defenses. If you can't delete, move them off your home screen and turn off non-essential notifications. Step 2. Create a focus window every day. Just 60 minutes. No phone in sight, no tabs, no autoplay. Read, learn, build, lift weights, write, work on a personal project. This one change transforms mental clarity more than any productivity hack on the internet. Step 3. Replace consumption with creation. For every hour you spend consuming content, spend at least 10 minutes creating something. Writing, training, coding, cooking, designing, anything. Consumption makes you predictable. Creation makes you powerful. You don't beat the digital plantation by deleting the internet. You beat it by refusing to be harvested. 2. Protect your data, your modern-day identity. If your attention is the fuel, your data is the blueprint. It's the map of your mind, your habits, your desires, your impulses. In a world built on surveillance capitalism, protecting your privacy isn't paranoia, it's basic survival. Here are simple tools to take control of your digital identity. Use privacy-centered browsers. Brave, Firefox, DuckDuckGo. Stop giving Google every detail of your life by default. A VPN isn't a luxury, it's hygiene. NordVPN, Surfshark, ProtonVPN. Think of it as brushing your teeth for your digital footprint. Password managers are non-negotiable. Bitwarden, 1Password. Stop using the same password everywhere, like it's 2009. Turn off ad tracking and location permissions. You don't need 20 apps following you everywhere you go. You're a person, not an ad tracking device. The point isn't to disappear. It's to choose what you share instead of bleeding data unconsciously. 3. Reclaim your body through real food intelligence. You can't be mentally free if you're physically exhausted, inflamed, or overfed, but undernourished. And since big food won't fix itself, the easiest path to real health freedom is learning how to read labels like a pro. Here's the shortcut. The fewer ingredients, the better. If the ingredient list looks like a chemistry exam, put it back. Sugar has 56 names. Know the big ones: maltodextrin, corn syrup, evaporated cane juice, rice syrup, agave nectar. If it's sweet but disguised, it's there for a reason. Avoid anything marketed as diet, low-fat, or healthy. Most of those labels translate to, "We removed real ingredients and replaced them with chemicals." Eat what your great-grandparents would recognize: eggs, meat, vegetables, fruit, actual food, not edible products with a PR team. Once your body stops relying on processed fuel, your mind becomes sharper, your mood stabilizes, your energy becomes consistent. This isn't health advice. It's a form of personal sovereignty. 4. Choose with your wallet, your silent superpower. Corporations don't respond to tweets. They respond to revenue graphs. Every dollar you spend is a vote for the world you're building, for which products survive, which systems grow, which industries thrive, and which ones die. Buy from companies that respect you, not exploit you. Support farmers, local businesses, ethical brands, and innovators who build actual solutions, not fake green marketing. Money is a language, and you speak it every day, whether you realize it or not. 5. Build a life they can't control. Here's what no system can monetize: a strong body, a disciplined mind, a valuable skill, a supportive community, a stable routine, a purpose bigger than entertainment. This is what makes you ungovernable, not politically, but psychologically. When you create instead of consume, when you think independently, when you're selective with your attention, when you're intentional with your money, you stop being a pawn in someone else's system. You become the sovereign individual they don't want you to be. Breaking the matrix isn't one big action. It's hundreds of small, daily wins. Every choice either feeds the machine or frees you from it. Every habit either programs you or empowers you. Every dollar, every click, every bite, every scroll, it all shapes the world you live in. You're not powerless. You're not a data point. You're the deciding variable. The revolution doesn't start out there. It starts with you, in your kitchen, in your phone, in your morning routine, in the small decisions that ripple into a different life. This is how you break the matrix. Quietly, consistently, completely. And once you begin breaking the matrix, something powerful happens. An awakening. They've spent years trying to convince you that you're too small to matter, that the systems around you are too big to challenge, that your choices barely make a dent. But look closer. An awakening is already happening, quietly, steadily, everywhere. You can see it in the guy tracking his sleep, nutrition, and training like an athlete, instead of waiting for the system to fix him. You see it in creators building decentralized tools, engineers launching alternatives to big tech, communities choosing local energy over corporate dependence. A new world isn't coming someday. It's forming right now inside the cracks of the old one. And the system isn't threatened by anger. It's threatened by clarity, by a mind that sees through the noise, by a person who chooses intentionally instead of reacting automatically. That's the real danger to their machine. And that, my friend, is exactly who you're becoming.